First, I would like to say thank you for attending the University Procurement Card Program Administrator / Delegate webinar. I am Patrick. I am the Procurement Card Program Manager. I also will be assisted today by Vanessa. She will be moderating for us. She is the Procurement Card Program Administrator. And also we'll have with us as well the Assistant Director of Disbursement, Valerie Hughes. Okay, some logistics as far as for this webinar. This webinar is slated for 1 hour and 30 minutes. We'll highlight and present on, as far as card program changes and processes and concur. I am asking that if you have questions to please submit them via the chat, which Vanessa will be monitoring, and she'll gather those questions and we will attempt to address them after the presentation. I ask that you please do not direct message myself, as I'm not the one that's monitoring the chat. Also, with all the registrations that we've had, I'm sure you're aware during the opportunity to register, there was an option to submit questions. So some department administrators took advantage of that and submitted their questions while registering. So those questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. We have approximately 8 slides with previously submitted questions. So in all transparency, there may not be an opportunity to address all questions that are submitted in the chat. But what I want to do is that those questions that were not submitted, that we don't get to, that are submitted in the chat, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add those questions to this presentation. This presentation is also going to be posted on our link page. So and we'll answer those questions and add them to the list of questions that we have on our slides. So that way you can review, and also those that didn't have a chance to attend, they'll be able to review as well. I am also asking that that everyone to please ensure you remain muted, and also you stop sharing your camera. So I apologize for me not sharing my camera as well. What we have discovered during these trainings, just because there's so many people in attendance, when people are displaying their view and their camera, it tends to make the presentation lag a bit. So I'm asking that if you're sharing your video to please not share, and that is the reason that I'm not sharing my video. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. All right, so some of the things that we'll be covering today. So we're going to cover how to become a department administrator, roles and responsibilities of a department administrator, card program changes, creating and approving a P-card request, and creating an expense report. So after this course, I would love to tell you that you will now be a super department administrator and know everything concur. Unfortunately, that will not be the case. So the reason that we kind of put this webinar together was to address some of the issues that we're seeing, and address some of the questions and things that we're hearing back from you, the P-card community, specifically the department administrators. So hopefully we'll get a chance to answer some of those questions and some of those concerns and clear some things up for you. And I'll talk as far as a little bit more about our availability, but anything not addressed as far as during this webinar, there are still questions for, we are available during office hours, office hours twice a week on Mondays and Wednesdays. We're also, we conduct the P-card training every other Tuesday, and we're, somebody from the P-card team is always available during hypercare. And also, if there's something that we need to do, whether we want to address on a one-on-one level, you can always submit a service and support case, and we can set up a time and date where I can actually either myself or one of my administrators can actually sit down with you and address as far as those issues and concerns. So again, if you are sharing your video or you're not muted, please ensure they are turned off. All right. So procurement card, as far as department administrator. So in the past, a new DA would just submit a request via service and support and let us know that they want to be a new DA, and we would add that DA in EC Manager. Now that is not the case, now that we moved over to Concur. So what happens is that if, let's say you have there's a new DA that wants to become a DA, they must submit a request via service and support. And when they navigate the service and support and submit that request, the request is to be given the approval role in Oracle, which is fed into Concur. So without that role, I will not be able, or my team will not be able to assign you as a DA. So you would navigate as far as the service and support. You would select home budget and finance requests catalog, access requests, and Oracle and Concur roles requests. So this is what would need to be done for a new DA. Let's say for yourself, you transition to another role or to a new department, and a new DA needs to be assigned. Let's say you're retiring, or you just moving on. That's the process that would be needed in order for a new DA to be assigned. And also, as you can see on the screen, as you're answering those questions, when you get to that question that's identified as the person responsible for the operations administrations of a procurement card, there's a question mark. You would click that question mark, and once you click that question mark, the delegation form that's required for you to fill out would show, and you would fill out that form and submit that request. Once that request is submitted, I'm sorry. So also the form is actually available on our blank pages as well. So you would go to our main procurement card blank page, and under commonly requested forms, you will see the procurement card department administrator form, and you can get the form there as well. So once you've been given approval, as far as an Oracle, you would submit a ticket to the P card team, ensure that that the new DA has their P card training certificate, and new department administrator, the authorization form, and also a list of all current card holders that you will need to be added as a DA for. Also, please include any type of identifying information for those card holders, since we know some card holders may have the same name. So we would request the employee ID and also the card last four. I understand that you may not have all those informations, but those are some of the things that we would need to ensure that we're identifying and adding you to the correct card holder. So real fast, as far as some of the procurement card highlights, these are things that you probably should already know, but just a recap, as far as yourself being a department administrator, one of the changes that you'll notice is the new name, right? The procurement card, formerly known as the Express card. No need to be really concerned about the new name. The card is the same exact card. It will continue to be used to purchase and pay for routine low dollar products and services that do not involve a contract. The features of the card also didn't change. It will continue to have a single transaction limit of $4,999, a $10,000 cycle limit, and the cycle runs continues to be from the 16th of the month to the 15th of the following month. So nothing changes with the card. So card holders keep their current cards, and then once the card expired, their replacement card will come in, and what will happen is that they will have the new logo on the card. Instead of saying Express card, it will say procurement card on the actual new card. All right, let's talk about as far as some of the changes. I would first like to go over some of the new terms and terminology that the transition to Concur has brought about, right? So, and this transition, and this is for myself and my team as well, we have to ensure that we start to familiarize ourselves with the new terms. I know, as far as DAs, that we've had the opportunity to, as far as possibly been a DA for a while in certain terms that we were using. But we need to ensure that we are actually using the new terms and understanding the new terms and terminology, so that way our card holders can start using new terms and terminology as well. So to align with industry standard terminology used by like other UC procurement card programs within Concur, the UC San Diego Express card has been rebranded to UC San Diego Procurement Card, or P card for short. EC Manager has now fully transitioned to Concur. So Concur is now the only online tool for managing everything related to the procurement card. So within Concur, there'll be two main processes that you'll become very familiar with, which are requests and expense. So some of the things to keep in mind, there are certain things I'm going to highlight. Everything is important, but there are certain things that I find that always come up. So this is the reason why I'll say highlight this, right? So request is now initiated by the card holder. So unlike an EC Manager, where requests were initiated and submitted by the department administrator, some items that can be submitted as a request includes a new card request, a limit increase, to cancel a card, and also a name change. So also the term expense is actually new to the procurement card program, right? The procurement card reconciliation takes place within the expense module. So the term reconciliation is equivalent to what was previously known as the redistribution process. So during the reconciliation process, the card holder no longer selects or enters an account code. So instead, the cardholder now selects an expense category. The term delegate is a new role also to the P-card program. The delegate role is closely related to what used to be the transaction review role, which which will now be moving forward. So the delegate is a faculty of staff that has been assigned in Concur by the cardholder to create a request or expense report on his or her behalf. Now, for you, as far as this community as a department administrator, you have also been given the delegate role, and I'll talk about that a little bit further. But your role is the department administrator. Now, you've been given delegate privileges in order to help fulfill the roles and responsibility of the department administrator role. So although you have access as a delegate, you are still a department administrator role who's been given the extra access of a delegate. So let's say once a delegate creates a request or expense report, it will be routed for approval by either the card holder or department administrator. So as a department administrator, requests are routed to you with the exception of a new card request. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. As far as yourself, you're the DA, the department administrator, which is anyone who oversees the use of the procurement card for their departmental card holders. And not just anyone, because I think sometimes when we speak to those in these card roles, they kind of get confused as far as what their roles are. So that's why I say we have to understand, we have to be aligned with the roles and terminology. So the DA or department administrator is the individual that was assigned in writing via the department administrator authorization form by their department head to oversee card actions in their department. So they are assigned in writing. As to where a delegate is not necessarily assigned in writing. A delegate may be assigned in writing for the department, but not more so for the card program. Our team, the central office, the P card management team, we do not require to officially assign a delegate. So the department administrator is the person that is assigned in writing by their department to oversee their card program. And last but not least, the financial unit approver. May have known this role as the fund manager. Financial unit approver is anyone that oversees the use of account strings attached to a made transactions. Chart of account strings is what is to be known as the formerly known as the account indexes. All right. The role of the department administrator is to oversee the use of the procurement card or cards that the card holders in their department. You will be you will be your cardholder's primary source of information about the procurement card program. So as a department administrator, uh, your role has not changed with the move over to Concur. So as the department administrator, you are essentially an extension of the P card team. So pretty much eyes and ears on the ground to ensure that the P card program is working properly and correctly in your department, and card holders are using the card the way they're supposed to, or ensuring policy is being adhered to. All right. So as I mentioned, the department administrator is responsible for the management and oversight of the procurement card program in their department. These responsibilities include responsible for reviewing all procurement card transactions, developing and implementing internal procedures, controls, training members of the work group on the department's fiscal requirements, knowing the procurement card limitations and restrictions, sharing new program information with card holders. So I do understand currently accomplishing some of these tasks may be a bit tougher to do, right? Just as far as some of the limitations that are in Concur. And trust me, at the central office and PCAR team, we understand that. We understand as far as certain limitations that are currently in place, right? Because we're still in the infancy stage of Concur being implemented. But the team also uses the reasonable person standard when ensuring these policies are adhered to. All right. So so how were you identified as a department administrator administrator in Concur? So um, if you were a department administrator and EC manager when we went live, you were assigned as a department administrator in Concur. You were also given access, as I mentioned before, as a delegate in order to better fulfill your role as a department administrator. So we have over 3,000 cardholders. In order for us to assign all the department administrators to those cards, we had to request some help from Concur, and Concur did a mass upload for us. So not only did they do a mass upload in assigning you as the department administrator, they also did a mass upload in assigning you as a delegate. I'm sorry, that came in super weird. As a delegate, and the reason that you were given, as far as those you are assigned as a delegate as well, is because of certain limitations that the department administrator role has within Concur. And I totally get it, and I understand that having to be assigned as a delegate and the way to navigate Concur for those that already have been using Concur, uh, it it's tougher than kind of what it was in EC Manager, right? But also, what I want to say is that Concur, unfortunately, is not a homegrown program. EC Manager was a homegrown program. Although on the outer shell, it may seem that it was working right. EC Manager was getting old. There were a lot of errors that were happening in the background as far as certain things, whether it was expensive transactions and requests. And Concur is just a newer tool that we have the opportunity to use. And there are some pain points right now in the beginning. But understand when I mentioned that we are still in the infancy stage. I mean, we just went over a month after going live. Excuse me. So there are going to be limitations and things that are going to come up. The one good thing, excuse me. Oh man, not just the one good thing about Concur. The good thing about Concur is that they are really open to our enhancements requests. So although limitations and stuff may be in place now, future enhancements can possibly better or remove those limitations. So that's why you were assigned as a delegate and a department administrator. The fact that you're assigned as a delegate doesn't relinquish your duties as a department administrator. It's just ensure that you have access to better fulfill your responsibilities as a department administrator. All right, so let's look at some of the user capabilities of the procurement card, right? So card holders, so this is a snapshot of Concur capability. So card holders are required to utilize Concur for card requests and reconciliation of charges on expense report. This requires action is exclusive to the cardholder, but can be prepared by another person designated as a delegate for their department. So when the cardholder is the one that is responsible for submitting their whether it's a request or an expense report. Before an EC manager, the DA used to do a lot for the cardholder. So in moving forward and moving over to Concur and even Oracle, is ensuring that the user is the one that is responsible for ensuring that these tasks are done. So the cardholder can prepare their requests. They can submit their requests via Concur. They also can submit any type of action requests in Concur as well. And also the cardholder can also submit an expense report in Concur. So the cardholder, which is the process owner pretty much, can do all of those things on their own. But now, as a delegate, right, which is kind of similar to the transaction reviewer role, a delegate is not required for a cardholder is not required to have a delegate. The delegate role is not a role that the P-card team requires that a cardholder has. The only delegate that is required for the cardholder is that the DA is assigned as a delegate as well. Any other delegate that is assigned to that cardholder assigned, it's up to the department and it's up to that cardholder to say, hey, due to my obligations, I can't fulfill these admin duties as far as the P card is concerned. I am going to assign a delegate to help me in achieving these things, right? So the delegate is assigned, it's really optional, right? The only person that's not optional to be a delegate is the department administrator. So once that delegate is assigned to that cardholder's profile, and you as a department administrator, you are also a delegate, right? Because we said that we gave you those options so that way you can fulfill your role. But being the fact that you're a delegate, you can perform delegate duties as well, right? So you can prepare a new card request as a delegate. For new card requests, the delegate cannot submit that request. They can prepare it, and once they prepare it, the cardholder will have to log into Concur and submit that request. That is the cardholder stating the fact that they're submitting, like, yes, I am the one that is submitting that request. The delegate nor the DA can submit that request on behalf of the cardholder. The cardholder has to say, yes, this is I that is submitting for this new card request. Now, any type of card action request, the delegate can prepare and can submit. So the delegate will prepare it, right? And they can click submit and it will route for approval. Let me move back to the new card request. So when the new card request is created, it is not routed to the department administrator. The reason it's not routed to the department administrator is because when that request is being created, that new cardholder doesn't have a department administrator on their profile yet. That department administrator is assigned by us, the P-card team. So until we assign that department administrator to the cardholder's profile, it cannot route to you because you don't exist on that profile. So that new card request will only route to the financial unit approver. It won't route to the department administrator. Now, once that new card request is approved, any substantial request will route to the department administrator, because when that new card request was created, the P-card team added you as a department administrator to that profile. So any other request, whether it's a limit increase, name change, mail code change, all that will be routed to you as the department administrator. Now, the expense report is not routed to the department administrator, and is not routed to the department administrator due to certain limitations in Concur. I'm not going to go into those limitations within this orientations, but to understand that that's the reason that it's not being routed. So what happens is that in order for you to view expenses or to view expense reports, you will have to log in as a delegate for that card user, essentially logging into their profile, and you will essentially become that card holder and look in their queue and see what expense reports needs to be created and see what transactions hasn't had an expense report created already. I get it. We hear you. Trust me. Like, we've gotten all the input, notifications. It is a lot to ask. as far as to do that. Right now, just due to the sheer limitations of this tool, that is the only option that there is right now at this moment. Am I saying that that will never change? No, but at this current moment, that is the only tool right now in order to give you that access as a department administrator. All right. All right. All right. So as a DA, right, you're a department administrator, you log into Concur, and obviously, like there's a card holder um, training, right? So there's certain things that I'm skipping in this course because if you have not logged into Concur or your card holders have not yet logged into Concur, they need to take that card holder training. Even as a DA, yourself needs to take that card holder training and the live instructor-led training, which is every other Tuesday. So, and that is in UC Learning. You can search Procurement Card, and that training will be there, and you can register for that training. So, as a department administrator, I've logged into Concur. So on the left side, I've logged into Concur, right? So I would click Profile, and I would click Profile Settings. So once I click Profile Settings, it would take me to the profile option pages. And I'm not going to go over every single one of these tools, one of these options in Concur. We just don't have the time for that, right? So I'm going over things that matters to you as a DA and also things that are at least a minimum for you to be able to fulfill your duties and roles, right? So if we want to go as far as any further or into even more granular and more details, please reach out to us and we'll set up a time and date where we can actually do that with you individually. But for the for the sake of time in this course, there's only certain things that I will be going over. So you click, once you click on profile settings, you're taken to the profile option page. You have the options to select either request delegates or expense delegates. Once you select either options, you will be taken to either the request delegate screen or the expense delegate screen. So the first tab is the delegate tab. So that delegate tab for you, even as a DA, what it's going to show is that for you, like let's say you're a card holder as well, it will show you whom that you have added to be a delegate for you as a card holder, right? Let's say you're a card holder. Like for me right now, this was my, is this my profile or the test profile? I'm not really sure. I think this one was the test profile. But right now, there's no one added because there's no one that is a delegate for this profile, right? So if you want to add someone to be a delegate for you as a card holder, and the reason that you want to know this is because, remember, you're an extension of us and your department. And when your card holders come and ask you, like, hey, how do I add a delegate? These are things that you should be able to help your card holders with. Please understand, we have over 3,000 card holders. So we are in dire need of your assistance as a department administrator. Our case volume have almost tripled since we went live on July 1st. So I and my team is in need of your help, in your assistance, and helping to reduce some of these case volumes, because some of these questions that the card holders are asking are things that this DA or the department administrator should be able to help them with at their own level. And this is one of them, right? As far as how do I assign a DA to my profile? So this is how I would assign a DA to my profile. I would click add. Once I click add, the opportunity to search by the email address would come up. You would search by the email address, and then you would save that. That person as a delegate for you. The other tab right next to it is the Delegates For tab. So for you, this is what matters for you as a DA. It really matters. So the Delegates For tab, this is essentially your list of card holders. These are the individuals that has been added to your profile as a card holder. So that is how you would check to see who my card holders are. Unfortunately, there is not a report right now that will generate that for you. This is the only way to do so. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to watch a quick demo on how to assign a delegate. And I know I'm moving kind of fast, but just for the sake of time, we only have an hour and a half. So like I said, if there's things that are not covered or things that you have further questions about, please reach out to us via services support or come to office hours. All right. So let's go ahead and start the video. So, okay, click on profile settings. And as I mentioned, right, it took us to the profile options page. Either request delegate or expense delegate, either or is the same. So in this tool, we selected expense delegates. right? So we can either add, right? So the email come up, you can search for the employee, either by name, by email address. You can save. You can also delete, right? You can delete. And as you can see in this tool, you also give them permission on what they can do, whether receive emails and things what they can do for you as a delegate. And on this screen, you see who you are a delegate for. These are the people that you are a delegate for as a DA, and essentially your list of cardholders. Now, when I said as far as that you will essentially act as someone else, their delegate. So you click on profile, act as another user, start session. Now you're acting as that cardholder that you're just chosen, that you're the delegate. So this is how you would access their profile to see if they have expense reports or anything like that. So once you're done acting as that delegate, you would just click done acting as the delegate. And now that's how you assign a delegate. And that is how you act as another user. All right, so we're gonna go over creating a P card request. Who can create a P card? The card holder, a delegate, approvers. And the reason why I say approver, because you as DA, you're assigned as a delegate. So as an approver, you can't create a request. Let's see. All right. Concur request takes place of our old processes. So, prior to submitting the P card request, there are certain documentation that's required just as an EC manager. So if it's a new card request, you would require a cardholder agreement signed by themselves, the supervisor, and the MSO or department head. One of the things that changed as far as the new card request, I'm going to tell you this, it hasn't changed yet, but we're in the process of changing. So we hear you. When you reach out to us, we definitely listen and kind of pay attention and we kind of observe. We want to make sure that we're supporting you the right way. One of the things that mentioned is that DAs aren't knowing when a new card request is being requested. Obviously, the supervisor is notified and the department head is notified, but the DA name is requested, but this DA signature is not requested. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a line as far as for the DA signature to be there to give you opportunity to know that the new card request was selected, so that way you do not have to continue to log in to the delegate screen to see if a new card has been added to your list, right? So you'll know. So they'll be routed to you. What we find is that individuals are submitting P card requests and they're just putting any name on there as far as their DA. And we look up and that individual is not an actual DA. So, all right. Now what we're going to do is that we're going to show a quick demo on how to create a P card request. This is for those that haven't created one. All right, so the individual would log in to Concur. They are going to be creating a new P card request, or they're clicking Start a Request. And they are entering the header information. Also, as I've mentioned, if you haven't logged into Concur yet, as a department administrator, you're definitely behind the power curve, and you definitely need to ensure that you've taken that into live instructor training. So this is some of the stuff that if you've already attended that training, that we should already be familiar with. So this is the header information. The request name is free flowing, so always UCSD employee, right? As far as the payment product type is UCSD procurement card. As you see in the drop-down menu, some of these drop-down menus, they'll have OP options to select. Ensure that you're selecting those that say SD, because if you select any of these options that has OP in it, which is Office of the President, because we share Concur, you use some Concur with them, your submission will fail. So ensure that when selecting that you, not just you, but you instruct your card holders to ensure that they're paying attention, that they're not selecting anything that says OP. The OP selections will say OP in the very front. The SD selections will say SD at the end of the selection. So right now we're entering as far as the COA information that's required as far as at the header level. The business purpose. So the business purpose here is just the business purpose for the report, right? Like let's say, I'm sorry, not for the report. This is expense. So for the request. So whatever request that you're submitting, what is the business purpose as far as for that request? As you can see now, we click the expense tab. So some of the terms that you see, even though it's not an expense, you're submitting a request. Some of these titles we couldn't change. So when we click the expense tab, we're submitting what type of request that we're asking for. So right now we're asking for a UCSD procurement card. The expense type is going to be a new card, right? And then any additional comments that may be needed by the P card team. So in this instance, when a new card is being requested, right? So perfect example as far as communicating with your card holders is to well, let's finish this. So we're adding attachments now, right? I want to make sure we don't miss anything. So we're adding the attachments. Attachments are required. You're uploading the attachment, or your card holders will need to upload the attachments. If it's a new card, ensure that all the all the attachments are attached there. The requirements are attached, and your expense report has been submitted. One of the things I was going to mention as far as in the comment section, when additional comment, is that we're working in a remote environment. So we're here to support. So as the P card community, we want you to communicate with us. So if somebody's submitting a new P card request, what should happen is that request, let us know, like, hey, the card holder is working remotely, or the card holder needs to write to say, I'm working remotely, please ship this card to my home address and provide us with the home address, right? So, because we don't know everyone's home address. So unless we're asked to ship the card to the home address, it's shipped to campus. Now, we try to be proactive and reach out to certain card holders for expiring cards, but for the new card request, the card holder has to let us know that they want the card shipped to their home address. So that's a perfect example of what could be added as far as to that section. Oops, I'm sorry. All right, so once the request is submitted, it's routed for approval. So the approval roles include department administrator, financial unit approver, and like I said, now showing right now is the approver home screen. So the approver, which is yourself, right? So you're an approver for as a department administrator for a request, but you wouldn't necessarily be an approver for expense, right? Because it's not routed to you. So as an approver, you are a request approver, not a expense approver. The financial unit approver is the expense approver. So at the top right corner, you would see required approvals. You can click there, or you can also click at the bottom left where it says my task. You would click on there and then you would go to your approvals. All right, so once in the approval screen, the approver will discover pending approvals that are there for them. The approver will click in the pending request to review the contents of that request. So once you're in the request, the approver will click the attachment. So as a DA, you would see these requests and they will come in, and you would have to review this to make sure that the cardholder or the delegate has provided everything that they needed to provide within the request. One of the things that we're seeing now is that, we'll see permanent increase requests that'll come in, and the permanent increase request form is not attached. So as a department administrator, those are things you would be able to review for, and you should be reviewing for when reviewing these expenses. So once you're done as far as with the review process, the approver can either approve, so you would approve it if everything is correct, or you can return it back to the submitter to say, hey, please update this, or please add this. So when you click send back to user, a new screen will pop up, and you would type your comment, and then it would return it back to the submitter. All right. So also one of the things to keep in mind is that, as far as the P card request list, these are the things that's included as far as the request that I mentioned: close, cancel card, limit increase, new card, update billing address, update date on card. You'll also see under those selections, you'll see university procurement card, reload, decline, and balance card. It does not apply to the UCSD P card. That's a UCOP field. So that would not be something that you submitted to our team. All right, so as an approver, before, when you were looking at the queue, you were looking in your approval home, right? That tab that says approval home. But if you want to have a different view where you can see past reports that you've approved, you would click either requests, right? If you're a DA and you're approving requests, and you would click reports if you're a financial unit approver, looking for expense reports that you've approved. The reason that I'm showing you both is that as the department administrator, you should be aware of both, not only as far as your responsibilities, but also to be able to help out the financial unit approver if they need some help as well. So you would click either request or report, and then you would click view, and in the drop-down menu, you would see all the reports that you've either pending your approval or you requested to have approved. All right, let's go ahead and talk about creating an expense report. When submitting an expense report, again, it's required action by the cardholder, possible delegates, and assigned approvers, right? Which would be as far as financial unit approval. So same thing as far as, just like an EC manager, US Bank gets to provide the transactions to concur, and it loads within 48 hours. Some things to keep in mind. Charges would no longer post to the ledger after 10 days, right? It requires action by the cardholder or the delegate. With the change of financial system, there isn't a default P card index anymore. As you see in the default header, you have to enter the COA information. So users will no longer have a default financial unit or chart string, right? Or default account code associated with the P card. All of those will have to be selected when expensing a transaction. So let's go ahead and look at a quick demo for creating an expense report and expensing a transaction. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an expense report. So we're going to say start a report. So you would be doing this because you're a delegate. You can also do this for your cardholder, or their delegate can do that for them. So procurement card expenses, same thing as in the request. You have to fill out the information in the header level, the report name. So the report name is free flowing. So you can go ahead and name the report whatever it is that you choose to name it. So whatever works best for your department, right? Filling in as far as the fund, the financial unit. These are all required information. Although the fund doesn't necessarily show that asterisk next to it, but it is required. You'll get an error message if you don't enter it. So the financial unit, you'll select the approver. When selecting the approver, you'll have a recently used, but also approvers that are selected are those approvers that are related to that financial unit. So same thing as I mentioned, ensure that we're selecting SD fields when we're entering the information. So if a project is required, you would enter a project and task and expenditure type. So the business purpose should be entered here. So this is the business purpose for the expense report, right? So you would write as far as the business purpose, not the business purpose for the transactions that's going to be in the expense report. This is the business purpose that is for the expense report. So to expense transactions which occurred during the month of August, right? And you can add comments for any other information that you want to give us. So once the expense report has been created, you would click add expense. When you're adding the expense, the list comes up and you add whichever transactions, P card transactions. As you can see, the payment type, it says UCSD procurement card that you want to add to that expense. You click into the expense. Once you click in the expense, you have to select an expense type. An expense type is what was formerly your account code. It's correlated directly to the account code. Some expense types are taxable, some are non-taxable. So in this instance, we select the office supplies. There's a mapping tool available where you can see the different expense types. Also, now this additional information, that field that's being written, at first, that's where we wanted the comment. But what's happening is that we're seeing that field, that there's limitation to that field. So put the business description in the field below that in the comment section. So right now, what we just did is we added the attachments. So once the attachments is added, we're done with the expense report. We can submit the expense report, and it shows that this report was submitted and closed. So what we're asking is that this is just as far as the basics of submitting an expense report. Again, we talk a little bit more in detail during the P card training every other Tuesday. So if you have questions about, as far as how to do that and things like that, one, come to office hours, or two, attend those trainings, please. So this is something that I do want to cover because it's questions that we get a lot, and we could definitely use your help in addressing some of these. So let's say we are expensing a transaction, right? We just learned how to create the expense report, how to add the transaction into our expense report, but we decide, you know what? We need to allocate. So what is allocating? Allocating is when the transaction is being expensed to two different or multiple financial units. which means you're taking one expense and charging it to different places on your ledger, right? So different venue, different financial unit, you want to allocate it. So in EC Manager, that was the task of splitting an expense, right? Or splitting an index. So now what we're going to do is allocate. So you would click allocate, right? So you're in the expense, right? So we already added it to the expense report. This is us already in the expense, and now we open that transaction, and we added the city of purchase and ship to zip code. Imagine that was already there, and we say, hey, you know what? We want to go ahead and allocate. We would click allocate. Once we click allocate, it will take us to the screen. Then we would select add. Now, if you see right now, over to the right, it says 100%. So that means 100% of that transaction is currently allocated to the, even though it's a default allocation, we're talking about that was the allocation that we put in the header level. So there's no actual like default, but that's what was put on the header level. So it trickles down to these transactions. So now we want to allocate, we say, you know what, half of that transaction, was, or a certain dollar amount, let's say $100 of that transaction or half of that transaction is supposed to be allocated to a different COA, or formerly a different index. So we click add. Once we click add, a new screen would show up, or a new window. Once that window pops up, you would enter the new COA information, right? Just as we did in the header. And then you would click save. And then now you see there's an option to enter the percentage. So right now it's on percent. If you look at the other tab next to it, you would click amount, and you would be able to enter an exact amount. But for this example, we're going to keep it as a percentage. So I'm saying that 50% needs to be allocated to what I had put on the header level, and 50% needs to be allocated to what I am allocating now. And you see up top, it tells you 0% remaining. So if that's not 0%, that means there's still somewhere some funds is not allocated correctly. So ensure that you're paying attention to that. All right. So going back, then you would click save. I'm sorry. You click save. So once you save, it would take you back as far as to the transaction within the expense report. As you can see now, it is indicated by the little allocated word right there below the dollar amount. And if you click that allocated, the word allocated, it will show you a little pop-up screen of how the allocation happened, right? As far as how it was allocated. Now, I get it. I heard it. Like, this doesn't tell you everything that you may need to see, right? As far as whether it's the fund, the financial unit approver. I get it. Again, certain limitations that the tools have, right? I just want to show you as far as different little tips that you may use. So in this instance, it will show you how it was allocated. Now, let's say you finish allocating and you say, you know what, man, like I seen that itemization tab and it looks really tempting to press. What does that even mean? So let's say you decide you want to itemize. So what is itemizing? Itemizing is when a transaction is being expensed to two different or multiple expense types. So not multiple COAs, but multiple expense types or multiple account codes, right? Just as in EC Manager, you could split as far as account codes apply to different. You could say 50% of this applied to this account code and 50% applied to this account code. So if you want to itemize, you can also do that in Concur. So you would click the itemization button. Once you click itemize, something happened here, right? Because we had just allocated. So one of the tips to remember is that you should always itemize before you allocate. As you can see, when you allocate, once you itemize after allocation, it will delete the allocations. So ensure to try to do that. To do that first, right? So there's a little, I always remember to itemize before allocating. Okay, so let's say we selected that. Okay, the allocations, it removed it, so we're itemizing, right? So what we're saying is that, hey, we're itemizing. What are we trying to itemize? So a certain dollar amount was for office supplies. So we select the expense site. Okay, this is office supplies. And then when you select office supplies, you will also have to select the dollar amount of that purchase that was office supplies. So you would enter $100. So that's $100. And as you see, once you enter $100, it will tell you the remaining dollar amount that needs to be itemized, right? So once you've done that and entered the information that is needed, dollar amount, and you selected the expense type, once you've saved, what's going to happen is that now you see where the allocation, what you allocated $100 to office supplies, and you still have $896.21 that still needs to be itemized, right? Because you selected office supplies for $100 of that purchase, but what about that $896.21? So once that happens, I click itemization again, and then you would enter the remaining dollar amount, right? That's if it all went. So in this instance, we selected audio visual supplies. It could be itemized. It could be broken down into 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? Different breakdowns. But in this example, we only chose 2. So you select the dollar amount, you will save the itemization. And then here you go. Both itemized items are there. And as far as the remaining dollar amount, 0. So that means you're 100% itemized. You would click Save Expense. Once you click Save Expense, it takes you back to Concur tool, and you're looking at your expenses that you added to that expense report. As you can see now, not only does it say allocated, it says itemized. I know. It had said that it would delete the allocation, right, if we try to itemize. So in this instance, I didn't want to show you allocating all over again because we already went and did that. I went back and allocated, right, after itemizing, and then now it shows allocated and itemized at the very bottom. The only difference is now when you click on allocated, it doesn't show you the breakdown anymore. It doesn't show you the breakdown. You will actually have to click inside of the actual transaction to see how it was allocated. So again, some of the different limitations of the tool. All right, so let's say you are approving, you are completing an expense report for a cardholder, or you're completing an expense report for a cardholder, or as a delegate. So one of the tools that we've recently started testing and looking into is when you're in the expense report and the transactions are showing that are in that expense report, there's the print share option, all right, which is at the very top. So you select the print share option, and this is it. If you look in the top right corner as well, so we're acting as another card holder, right? So let's say you're a delegate, your card holder, Patrick, comes to you and say, hey, Patrick, and I come to you and say, hey, can you please, complete my expense report for me? You would log in, right? Act as me. You're in Patrick's profile. You're acting as Patrick. So you completed the expense report for me, right? Concur doesn't automatically notify the card holder that the expense report has been created. So since Concur does not do that, what can happen is that you can select the print share. When you click down on print share, you will click on report details. Once you click on report details, there'll be 2 little check boxes up there, right? So you want to select both, because if you itemize, you want it to show the breakdown of the itemization. So by default, only the show expense types is usually checked, but make sure you check that show itemization box so it can show everything within that expense report. So if you scroll down, it shows the breakdown of the itemization on there, right? So that's if I want to view it. If I'm just trying to view it, I can go ahead and just click close. And if I want to contact the card holder and say, hey, card holder, I've created this expense report for you. Go ahead and go in and click submit. You would click email. And once you click email, the recipient, you would have to type in that email address, right? So it doesn't automatically populate it for you in this field. So you would have to know that email address and contact the card holder and put your comment like, hey, expense report has been created. Go ahead and approve. That email will come from Concur, but that card holder cannot reply back to that email in Concur. So it's kind of like a one-way communication. You just notifying that card holder like, hey, please complete submit your expense report. I've created it for you. All right, so incurring expenses. So one of the things that we're seeing that's a huge deal is that we are not seeing acceptable business description, a detailed business purpose, right? So there are certain business purposes that we receive. We'll see a cardholder will put receipt, invoice, supplies, right? So I give some example of, saying insufficient and sufficient. So like look at as far as the preferred, article publication fee in the National Academy of Science via Dharma, journal services for professor, volume, and then provide as much information as possible. So we got to remember, this is not a local policy. This is a UC policy. So it's not because the P-card team wants to see this here. It is because that is a UC policy. It is required. I don't know if any of you are familiar or ever went through an audit with AMAS. These are some of the things that they actually look at. These are some of the things that we actually are they look at for us as far as when we're auditing these transactions, that we're not ensuring that a proper business purpose is there. So, and not putting a proper business purpose is actually in violation of P-card policy and UC policy. So as a department administrator, right, although you may not see these expense reports, and I get it, they're not routing to you, but the education process can still be taking place. Please educate your cardholders so that way they know to add a detailed business purpose. All right, man. So I know that we've covered a lot. There's going to be a little break here soon. So concur reporting. This is a huge topic. Totally get it. And it's a huge pinpoint for everyone. In full transparency to everyone, this is not just a pain point for you. This is a pain point for us as well as at the P-card office for the central office. The same reports that you're asking of us, the same reports that you're saying that are lacking or non-existent, that are hindering you in fulfilling your roles and responsibilities, is the same expense reports that us, the P-card team, that we're asking for as well. So it's not like we have these reports available to us and you as the DA, you're out there on your own and just don't have any reporting. We don't have any reporting as well. So just to kind of put it into perspective. So I understand as far as DAs, as a DA, you take your role serious. You want to ensure that you're doing everything correctly, right? Let's say, a DA has 100 cardholders. You have 100 cardholders, which, you want to ensure that everything is being done correctly. You want to make sure that they're hearing the policy, they're submitting expense reports, right? So it kind of makes you feel uneasy that you don't have access to this report to say, hey, cardholder, submit these reports and these expense reports. Just to put it into perspective, those same roles and responsibilities falls on me as the P-card program manager, right? These are the same roles and responsibilities that I have to adhere to. As I previously mentioned, I am responsible for 3,000 cardholders. So imagine how many expense reports that I do not have visibility for, right? So the same blind spots that you have right now are the same blind spots that myself and my team have right now. So I'm asking that you please bear with us and please have some understanding and knowing that we are working tirelessly to try to get these reports published. We're working with Concur. We also have certain consultants that we're dealing with. So it's not that we don't know that we need reporting. It's just right now they're not available to us. Prior to going live, there were certain things that had to be available. There were certain things that had to be running, right? And those things were things that were not going to, that if they didn't happen, the P-card holder would not be able to use their P-card. The P-card holder's business process would halt. So those were the priorities when we went live. So now that, we're moving into different stages, now we're addressing these other things, right? We don't have reporting. It is a blind spot, but it doesn't necessarily stop the cardholder from performing their duties and conducting purchases. So these are the reports that we've identified and submitted to Concur as at a minimum what we would like to have. So we got the reconciliation report, right? To be able to see what's been extracted from Concur to Oracle, aging report, to see all transactions that are not in workflow. So expense reports that are still in the cardholder's queue that they haven't created an expense report for. Employees who change departments, right? Because even for me as the P-card team, I need to have that report to know, like, hey, if they have still an active card, this card needs to be canceled, because we don't always get a cancellation request when an employee leaves a department, right? They may not even tell the department administrator, right? And maybe that's the reason why we don't get that. So that's a liability out there, right? Employees who separated from the university. Reports identifying outstanding credit memos. So if a card holder has a personal expense on their P card, accidental personal expense, we need to be able to know, to track that, to be able to know, hey, have they reimbursed the university? New card requests as far as sending to US Bank. So we're trying to automate certain things as well in order to support you better. Right now, when you submit your request in Concur, we are manually going into US Bank and typing in all that information. So what we're trying to do is that extract that information from Concur and send that information to US Bank, so that way it could be automatically entered, right? So that way our team is not stuck doing that manual process. So that way we can better serve you and better support you in things that you really need help for. Active card holders, being able to know who our card holders are. Right now, I have no clue who my card holders are. If you try to ask me, hey, who are all my card holders? I do not have visibility towards that. So that's why I say I feel your pain when you are lacking visibility, because I am lacking that same visibility as well, right? Active P card department administrators. The only way I was able to right now identify who you were and that you were a department administrator is because I still had the access to go into EC Manager to pull that list. I don't have that access in Concur. Even though you're assigned as a department administrator, I can't go in there and pull all the department administrators, right? A delegates role report, identifying all delegates, identifying delegates by department, who they're a card holder for. So these are all things that we are addressing with Concur and also addressing with consultants to see how we go about pulling those reports and making those reports available. Some of these reports will be available to you at the department level. Some of these reports we may have to provide to you, right? So we're all learning new processes. So I know that we may have been comfortable in the ways of doing things, or maybe accustomed to the way of doing things, but in moving with moving on with these new tools, we have to be able to understand that these processes may have to change, and we may have to end up doing things a different way. So please understand that we hear you. We know reporting is an issue. It is an issue for me too. I am jumping and screaming that I need access to these reporting, just as you are. So please know that we're working on these. And if you don't have them, it's only because we haven't been able to get them to have them active yet, but we are actively trying. So I know we went over a lot. And right now we are at 2:07. We were supposed to have a 5-minute break. I've been speaking for about an hour now. And what I want to do is grab me something to drink. So it is now 2:07. Let's take just a 2-minute break. 2:09, we'll go ahead and restart, and we'll start addressing those questions that we receive when individuals were registering, and some hopefully we'll get to answer the ones that were submitted in the chat. So I'm sorry, now 2:08. So let's come back 2:10. 2 minutes, please. Thanks. All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and begin. So what we're going to do is address some of these questions that we received prior to um, when individuals were registering, right? So when entering the details for P-card transaction, what should be entered, and under the city of purchase field, um, it should be the final destination that the product is purchased. So even if you're purchasing the product, let's say you're traveling, you're purchasing the product while you're in Alaska, if the product is being, or the transaction being made, is the shipment is being sent to San Diego. So San Diego is the final destination of the product, then that's where it would be purchased. That's where you would put. Can I become a card holder and still be a department administrator, delegate to other card holders? Yes. So you can be a card holder. You just can't be your own department administrator. You can't be your own department administrator if you're a card holder. When viewing expenses and Concur, I can see that some of the charges made online have receipts attached to them already. Do we need to still add receipts? We have one we have on file to these particular expenses. Not required for expenses that have level 3 data. We talk a little bit more about level 3 data that in the P card class. So I'm not going to go into that right now. But if level 3 data is there, a receipt is not required. But what we're finding out is that those receipts that are already attached to them, those electronic receipts, one issue that we're having now is that some departments are still wanting to add a receipt to those electronic receipts, and it is causing an error. So what they have to do is to delete the electronic receipt and add the actual physical receipt that they've scanned. If that is the case, that is a workaround for right now. That issue has been identified, and Concur is still trying to recreate that and figure out why that is happening. How long does a card holder have to reconcile the expense as far as transaction and expense report? We advise as far as card holders to submit expense report no more than semi-monthly or monthly. We're requesting that card holders reconcile the transaction the month of the charge that it was made in, i.e. the same month the transaction becomes available, and expense and Concur, meaning and even in hypercare and office hours, we've talked about this question in detail. We hear you. We understand that some departments it may not be able to submit just one expense report as far as a month. That is something that Nikki and our director Heather is definitely as far as looking into and deciding upon. I'm sure more will come out as far as that is concerned. But right now, 1 or 2 expense reports a month. All right, is there a way to reduce the number of email notifications? Yes, for emails, the cardholder receives. So the cardholder would log into Concur, go to profile settings, request preference and expense preferences. They would check or uncheck boxes as far as to send emails when. So they would check or uncheck all that applies. So for emails, the delegate receive. So for the delegate, if you're the delegate, you're receiving a lot of emails, you can't stop those. The delegate has to log in to be able to do that for you, to stop those emails. So same thing, as you can see, log in to Concur, and the delegate will go in and check and uncheck emails that they want to stop sending. What actual oversight does the V-Card department administrators have? What is now required of us? I discussed this during the presentation as far as the oversight being assigned as a delegate to also be able to see the cardholder profile and see expense report and transactions that haven't been expensed yet. Need reports to manage outstanding transactions for P card holders. I kind of spoke a little bit in length about where we're at in reporting. So those reports are just not available right now. Need a way for Concur to distinguish expense reports separated for P-card travel expenses. So P-card expenses are identified by the payment type UCSD procurement card. So you can filter by that, and then you will see that you can filter by that and have all the P-card transactions together. Need a way for department administration to access complete expense report without being a delegate. Unfortunately, right now, as I've already explained, Concur does not support department administrator access expense reports. Like, the only way to do so is to be assigned as a delegate, which the P-card team does when they assign your profile as a department administrator. During COVID, it is required for every cardholder to fill out the ship to home form. Also, thank you for meeting and sharing with us, with the DAs. Yes, each cardholder must submit a ship to home form, but also no, this is a one-time requirement. So that ship to home form, once once that form is submitted, it is not required anymore, right? So they submit the form to ship to a home address, right? And then once the cardholder receive authorization, right, that's it. They jot down or save the service and support case number, and then when they're expensing their transaction, all they do is add in that case number as they're entering their business purpose, and that's all that's required. So it's a really it's a really simple process. And thank you to whomever asked that question and said thank you for meeting with us. We enjoy meeting with you, and we enjoy these interactions. So thank you. For and this one, I'm not sure. It says, forget your admins for a minute. You still need the most simple, most basic possible recorded 10, 15-minute training video for your P card holders. I'm not sure if I understand the question. Please feel free to reach out to myself directly to discuss if there's an issue or something lacking as far as the training is concerned. Please feel free to reach out to myself, and we can definitely discuss. Hello, if there can be a detailed overview of role and responsibilities of department administrators, how to add or change administrators, that would be great. I think we kind of we discussed that during the presentation, how, as far as delegates can be added or delegates can be removed. If anything more is needed, please feel free to stop by our office hours, and we can discuss a little bit more in detail. Also, when you come to office hours, please ensure that you're ready to share your screen, because it just makes that exchange that much better, so we can see what you're referring to and what you're trying to do. It's a great opportunity for us to have some good exchanges and some learning opportunities. So please come to office hours. How do we view the list of all cardholders for our department? Where can we run a report of the user role assignments for Concur? Same thing, reports are currently in the design process, and we just don't have access to that yet. All right, how is use tax handled? So as I mentioned before, as far as during office hours, P-card transactions use OneSource and Oracle, which is used in the background, right? So you don't see that in Concur. So you won't see use tax assessed in Concur. So the expense type, and we talk a little bit more about these in the P-card training. So if you would like to understand how taxes work, how tax work, please attend the P-card training or come to office hours. So the expense type, the sales tax paid, the tax exempt code, or the ship to zip code, all of that is what contribute to how use tax is assessed by OneSource in the background. So right now, OneSource isn't working correctly as it should be. As you know, with the implementation of new systems, things sometimes, right, it doesn't work out the way we anticipated. So right now it is not. So what's supposed to happen is that once you submit your expense report, OneSource would take over in the background, apply it as far as the use tax, and it would post to your ledger with the charge plus the use tax as a separate line item. But right now, like I said, OneSource is not. So you'll see the charge post on your ledger. Any use tax will not be posting on your ledger right now. So there will be, if I understand correctly how it was explained to you, kind of like a mass upload of those use taxes that were assessed during that time, and then that will post to your ledger as far as in bulk. I'm sure there'll be more communication as far as coming out about that as well. Our purchasing admins work for different departments. I now get email notifications associated with those departments on approved expense reports. She submits any way to stop. Please contact the cardholder and have her remove you as a delegate for the P card. So the reason that you were added as a delegate for that cardholder is because at some point in time, you were probably a transaction reviewer for that cardholder, and that role still existed in EC Manager and was never either changed or updated. So that role followed you into Concur. So in that instance, as I mentioned, the cardholder would have to be the one. So please just contact the cardholder and explain to them how to remove you as the P card as a delegate on their profile, and they should be able to do so. How do I retrieve a list of department P card holders and their outstanding balances? Is there a mandatory training for all P card holders? Will faculty receive an email about concurrent responsibilities as P card and T&E card holders? Thanks. Department administrator must be added as a delegate. As we mentioned, there's no list that can be generated. The only way to do so is to log in as a delegate for that card holder and go into their profile. The card holder training is an annual requirement. The past year, what I did is that an email was sent out, and that sufficed as the annual refresher training. But going into next year, that will not be the case. Card holders will be required to retake the training every year. So please start getting that information out there that, hey, this is an annual requirement. Again, this is not UC San Diego policy. This is a UC policy that all card holders must have annual refresher training. Must have that training. So cardholder, the department administrators' responsibilities are detailed also in the cardholder agreement and the procurement card department administrator authorization form. I get it. I know when we're signing up for credit cards and things like that, a lot of times we don't read these fine prints, right? Because you can't get it unless you sign it. But it's the same thing as far as with this P card. Those responsibilities are addressed in those agreements. All right. Please show me how to run a list of unassigned credit card transactions. Again, department administrator must be added as a delegate. What is the process of reconciling cards for terminated employees? So please contact us via service and support. So you would include the terminated or retired employee's full name, card last four is available employee ID, and also the full name of the person that's going to be taken over to reconcile those outstanding transactions for that separated employee. So you would submit a service and support case to us. Just let us know this, provide the person that's going to do it, and then we would go ahead and transfer those transactions over to that individual. How do I allocate expenses that are different to different default venues? So it was decided as far as during the testing, and I think the filler that was out there, and it was a design team decision and consulting with different financial unit approvers. They wanted to see the full expense report and not just the expense report that was allocated to them. So that's why that was decided upon. It was by request of the multitude or the bulk of the financial unit approvers. Where can cardholders be referred to understand what they need? Unassigned credit card transactions that have been assigned to expense report. All transactions should be reconciled within 30 days per university policy. All unassigned transactions are contained in the cardholder's expense type and available expense. All right. Is there any query that exists for department administrator to view all department cardholder transaction? Again, the DA has to be added as a delegate. As you can see, as far as these questions, there's a common theme, so we definitely hear you. Are P cards requests, new requests, limit requests automatically routed to DA for approval? Yes, all requests are routed to the DA for approval, with the exception of the new card request, and that is because the DA has not been added to the profile yet. The DA won't be added to the profile until after the P card team approves that request. As a DA, will I get access to reports? Same thing. Currently, the department administrator must be added as a delegate. Reports are continuously still being worked on. How do I view list of card holders for my department? And as I said, it's a common theme, so we definitely hear you. Where can we run a report to use user roles, assignments, and concur? Same question. I need to become a department administrator right now. It is Veronica Garcia. I tried to change in roles, but has not been changing. So I wasn't quite sure if, as I mentioned, as far as prior in the beginning. So please submit an Oracle and Concur role request and service and support. Once completed, then provide the information that is needed for us in service and support, like as far as the department administrator authorization form, and also the training certificate. And if for some reason, or they've already added her role in Oracle, please come and visit office hours, and we can discuss as far as the detail. I like to be more familiar with the roles above delegate. What are their functions? And where the guidelines to assign them, there's confusion within my department. I think we kind of discussed this as far as during the presentation, as far as what's required from DA, delegate. Again, please come to office hours if you have any questions, or submit a question via services support, and one of my administrators will definitely get to that. One of my colleagues was trying to attach an express card receipt and concur, but it would not let her submit without entering a fund, even though fund doesn't have an asterisk. Any help? All right. As I mentioned, as far as the terminology, no longer the express card, we are procurement card. And fund is always required. I think I mentioned that in the training. It doesn't have a red asterisk next to it. I can't recall the reason why the red asterisk is not there. There's a reason behind it, but it is required. It is the audit rule has been created to make sure that it's required. Okay. How to submit fraudulent charges, how to submit personal charges that were accidentally charged to the P card. So fraudulent charges are expensed and concurred just as any other transactions. Instructions on how to report fraudulent charges are listed on the P card blank page. Procurement card FAQ, how do I handle a fraudulent transaction? We actually just had a meeting about this today, myself and the T&E team, and we are looking into there possibly may be some changes that may be coming with fraudulent charges, but currently you process them the same way that you process any expense. So I know for fraudulent charges, sometimes the bank may give you a affidavit. If not, the bank doesn't give you an affidavit, then a simple Word document that say, hey, this is a fraudulent charge, and then submit, because there won't be a receipt for it, right? So, and then that will be fine as you're expensing the report. Why are the first and last names of the employees switched on their Concur profile? The reason that the name is switched, employee information is directly imported from UCPath and are not created by Concur. So however it's imported by UCPath, how UCPath has it, that's how Concur interpreted. So when searching for the name, that's why you have different options to search by, whether it's the email, first name, last name, to kind of narrow it down. So I apologize for that, but that's just how the information is brought into Concur. Previously, we were able to remove use tax when the system incorrectly applied. So this is another use tax question, and it's the same answer that I posted, is that the use tax is not, or the tool is not currently working as it should at the moment. And it will definitely be addressed, and you'll probably be hearing more about that once they tend to fix that. Right now it is 2:28. It was a lot of information to cover in an hour and a half. I know that there are questions we didn't get a chance to answer from the chat. What I will be doing is that I will be addressing every single one of those questions, and I will be posting them to this presentation, and that presentation will be posted on our blank page. Please give me at least until Monday to do so. There was a lot of questions from what I'm understanding. So again, I will try to address those questions, but please, and put them on the presentation, but please take advantage of office hours every Mondays and Wednesdays from 8:30 to 10 a.m. And I'm sure those that attend will tell you that they normally get something out of it. We may not always have the answer or be able to fix the issue, but you're at least putting it on our radar, and it gives us a chance to interact and better understand what you're experiencing as a DA, as a financial unit approver, as a card holder as well. And also for your card holders and for yourself, if you haven't attended the P-card training that takes place every other Tuesday, please do so. Please have your card holders do so. We have over 3,000 card holders, and right now for classes that have been taken, we have just hit 1,000 card holders. So that means 2/3 of our card holders have not taken the Concur training. And this is the reason why we're receiving all these cases, and the reason why we're having all these questions is because people are just not attending these trainings. We're trying to make ourselves available as much as we can. So during a certain week, we're almost available, making ourselves available 5-6 hours. So to whether it's in training, whether it's hybrid care, whether it's in office hours, please have your card holders take advantage of those sessions. I know sometimes DAs try to attend and bring that information back, but a lot of times it's just better for the card holder to be there themselves. So please pass the word. and let them know. Again, I apologize if I didn't answer some of your questions or those questions wasn't answered, but we are at time, and I will ensure that I address every single one of those questions, and we'll place them on this PowerPoint presentation, and hopefully we'll have it loaded up to our link page by Monday. Again, thank you for participating. Thank you, and I appreciate everything that you do. And thank you for all your support and understanding. Everyone have a great day.